I never planned to pay for anyone's wedding, let alone my sister's $80,000 dream circus. But I would have done it. I was actually ready to write the check, until she called me a pathetic clown to my face. And suddenly, I saw everything clearly. I'm 32. My sister, Melissa, is 29. We've never been close. She's the golden child, the type who could burn the house down and somehow end up with ice cream and sympathy while I got grounded for setting a bad example. It's always been like that. I used to think it would change when we became adults. But no, Melissa just got older, louder, and more entitled. I'm not rich, but I've done well. I run a digital marketing firm I built from scratch. After years of 16-hour days and eating ramen in a rented office closet, I finally made it. I bought my first home last year. Paid off mom and dad's second mortgage when they were underwater. I don't flaunt it. I just try to be the kind of son they can be proud of. Melissa, on the other hand, hasn't worked a full-time job in over 5 years. She says she's an influencer, but mostly just posts TikToks of herself trying on outfits and reviewing skincare. Her fiancé, Ryan, is nice enough, a mild-mannered guy who never seems totally sure what's going on around him. The two of them got engaged last Christmas, and from the start, Melissa made it clear this was going to be her dream wedding. She called me 3 days later, voice dripping with excitement, and said, "So obviously you're going to help, right? I mean, you're the only one with money." She didn't ask. She informed me. I was caught off guard. "Help how?" "Just with the big stuff," she said breezily. "Like the venue, and dress, maybe the band, and maybe the after-party. But not all of it, don't worry." I asked her to send me a rough budget. It came in an hour later. $83,712.74. I remember staring at the screen, thinking it was a joke. But then came the texts. The follow-ups. "The mom said you'd do it guilt trips." I talked to my parents, and sure enough, Mom said, "Well, honey, you're in a position to make her dreams come true. You don't want to be selfish." Selfish. I sat with it for days. I didn't want to cause a fight. I told myself it was just money, and Melissa would only get married once. Maybe this would bring us closer. So finally, I said yes. I agreed to fund the venue and dress, with the option to contribute more later, pending boundaries. Melissa grinned when I told her. Didn't say thank you. Just said, "Knew you'd come through." From that moment, things got worse. She started treating me like her personal planner, demanding updates, complaining if I didn't respond within an hour. She'd text me Pinterest boards at 2 a.m. with captions like, "Need this. Can you get it by Friday?" No please, no gratitude. Still, I swallowed it. Until the night she humiliated me in front of everyone. We were at a family dinner. Melissa was showing off dress photos. I made a quiet comment that the design she picked looked expensive. She rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, don't be such a dad. You act like money is sacred or something." Someone chuckled. I tried to laugh it off. Then she leaned over and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Seriously, you're like this pathetic clown who thinks he's some big shot. Relax. You're paying for a wedding, not buying a country." Everyone laughed. Except me. That's the moment it snapped. The moment I saw her for what she was. And I decided, I'm not paying another damn cent. I wish I could say that moment at dinner was the first time Melissa had humiliated me. But honestly, it was just the most public. Growing up with her felt like living in someone else's shadow, even when I was the one doing the work. When we were kids, Melissa threw tantrums like it was an Olympic sport. If she wanted something, she'd scream until the walls cracked. I remember one birthday, my 12th. She had a meltdown because I got a remote control car she wanted first. My parents actually made me give it to her. "Be the bigger brother," they said. That line followed me into adulthood. Be the bigger brother. Be the better man. Be patient. I kept being the bigger, everything while Melissa kept getting away with murder. She flunked out of college after one semester and blamed her professors for not supporting her creative energy. My parents still paid off her student loans. She moved back home, started a YouTube channel about crystals, and somehow racked up $15,000 in credit card debt, which Dad paid off as a lesson in responsibility. Meanwhile, I was building my company out of a crappy studio apartment, juggling 2 part-time jobs to keep it alive. No one offered me help. Still, I didn't resent her. Not then. I just thought, that's who she is. I'll do my thing, she'll do hers. But over the years, the imbalance got harder to ignore. Every family gathering turned into a Melissa showcase. New hair, new brand partnership, new weird dietary restriction. Everyone tiptoed around her like she was some fragile art piece that might explode if criticized. I didn't even think she liked me. She barely asked about my life. Just sent me links to expensive gadgets or high-end beauty tools she wanted for her content. And anytime I pushed back, she'd say something like, "Ugh, relax. You're so uptight." Still, I tolerated it. So when she got engaged, part of me saw an opportunity. I thought maybe this was the thing that would bring us closer. Maybe if I helped with the wedding, if I really showed up for her, she'd finally see me as more than just the guy she mocks. It started with the venue. She wanted a historic mansion in the hills. I offered to cover half. She called me cheap and cried to Mom until I gave in. Then came the dress, custom-made, flown in from Italy. I offered to pay the deposit. Melissa said the full amount was only fair since you promised you'd handle the big things. I hadn't promised that, but she said it in front of our parents, who nodded like it was gospel. Every time I opened my mouth to set a boundary, she twisted it. Said I was trying to ruin her dream day. Said I was jealous of her moment. Said I needed therapy for control issues. And like an idiot, I kept writing checks. Until that dinner. After she called me a pathetic clown, I walked out, got in my car, drove home in silence. She texted me an hour later. "You seriously need to lighten up. Don't ruin this for me." I didn't reply. The next day, I called the venue and canceled my payment. The dress deposit? I called the designer and told them to refund it. If not to me, then to her. I wasn't going to be her piggy bank anymore. I didn't tell anyone what I'd done. I wanted to see how long it would take for the storm to hit. 3 days later, it arrived. My mom called me crying. "Why would you do this? Why are you sabotaging your sister's wedding?" She's devastated. My dad wasn't crying. He was angry. "You made a commitment, and you're backing out because your feelings were hurt? Grow up, son." And there it was again. Be the bigger man. I sat there, gripping the phone, shaking with rage. Not because of what they said, but because I finally realized they never saw Melissa for who she was. Or maybe they did, and just didn't care. That was the moment I stopped playing along. They wanted to pick a side? Fine. Let them. After that phone call with my parents, I expected things to cool off. I figured they'd be mad for a few days, maybe let Melissa blow off steam, and then realize how ridiculous this all was. But I underestimated just how deep the delusion ran in my family. Melissa didn't cool off. She escalated. 2 days after the call, she posted a photo on Instagram with the caption, "When your own blood betrays you weeks before the happiest day of your life, broken heart. But don't worry, I rise." It was a picture of her in the wedding dress I hadn't paid for, standing in front of the mansion I'd pulled funding from. I hadn't even known she went through with the fittings or visited the venue again. The comments were filled with sympathy. "You deserve better. Family can be so toxic. Cut the leeches out of your life." And then one comment from someone I didn't recognize. "Wait, wasn't your brother paying for all of it?" She replied, "He was. Until he decided he hated seeing me happy. But that's what narcissists do." Narcissist. I read that word over and over like it was a foreign language. I'd never said a cruel word to her, never undermined her, embarrassed her, or badmouthed her to anyone. I had bent over backwards to support her. And now I was the villain? I took a screenshot and sent it to our family group chat with one line. "So this is how it is now." No one responded. Not for hours. When they finally did, it was my mom. "Let's not make this public, okay? Please be the bigger person." I stared at that message until my eyes blurred. There it was again, my lifelong commandment. I didn't reply. Instead, I called my accountant and had him flag all charges linked to Melissa or the wedding. I told him not to authorize anything without speaking to me first. Then I went into my office and closed the door, staring at the wall for an hour, wondering how I had let it go this far. Later that week, I found out from a friend, one of the few people who still spoke to me, that Melissa was telling everyone I had promised to cover the entire wedding. Not just the venue and dress. The entire thing. 80 grand. And apparently, she'd already signed contracts on that assumption, including a band, a florist, a luxury car service, and a 4-tier designer cake flown in from another state. All billed to me. She had given them my name, my company's name, my email. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. "You said you'd help," she snapped over the phone. "Don't twist this around like I'm some kind of scammer." You just want everyone to think I'm crazy because you can't handle someone else being the center of attention. I tried to stay calm. Melissa, I agreed to a few things, not to bankroll your fantasy wedding. You never even asked. You just assumed. Because I knew you'd come through, she shouted. You always do, because that's who you are. The pathetic clown who wants to be loved so badly he'll write a check to anyone who smiles at him. There was a long pause. I don't know what hit me harder, the words, or how casually she said them. Like it was always that obvious. Like I was just some punchline to her. I hung up. Didn't say a word. That was the moment I realized it wasn't just about the wedding. This wasn't a misunderstanding or miscommunication. This was a pattern, one I had let run unchecked my entire life. Melissa didn't respect me. She never had. And honestly, neither did my parents. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I sent an email to every vendor she had listed me on. I explained that I was not financially responsible for any service not explicitly contracted with my signature. I CC'd my lawyer. I even attached the call log showing I never authorized those charges. Then I turned off my phone. For 2 days, I didn't check anything. Not emails, not texts, not socials. When I turned it back on, I had 47 missed calls. The fallout had begun. They came at me like a swarm. First it was my mom, calling nonstop, leaving voicemails in that trembling voice she always used when she wanted to sound like the wounded victim. I just don't understand why you're doing this. This is your sister's wedding. Your only sister. Think of what this is doing to the family. Then Dad, more blunt. You're humiliating us. Are you proud of yourself? You're going to ruin her reputation over a few dollars? A few dollars. That's what he called $80,000. Then came the texts from distant relatives, some of whom I hadn't seen in years. I heard what you did to Melissa. Family comes first. You need to fix this before it's too late. Even my aunt, who used to send me Christmas cookies every year, chimed in. I always knew you had control issues, but this is cruel. Cruel. That word hit differently. It wasn't cruel when Melissa lied about me publicly. It wasn't cruel when she handed out my name like an open wallet. But the moment I said no, that was cruel. It was like the entire family had been waiting for a reason to turn on me. And now they had one. I tried calling Ryan, her fiancé. I figured he might be the only rational one in this mess. When he picked up, he sounded nervous. Almost apologetic. Hey man, he said. Look, I get it. This has gotten way out of hand. But, Melissa's really stressed. She's not sleeping. She's saying you're sabotaging everything. I know that's not what you meant to do, but what? I asked. He paused. Maybe just pay for the venue again? Just that. Maybe we can calm things down. I hung up. Not rudely. Not in anger. Just quietly. That's when I realized Ryan wasn't just enabling her. He was scared of her. She had that same grip on him that she had on our parents. And I wondered how long he'd last under it. The thing is, the more people tried to guilt me, the more at peace I felt. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just the fixer. I wasn't putting on a smile and bending to keep the peace. I was choosing myself. But that didn't mean it didn't hurt. I kept thinking back to all the times I had her back. When she got dumped at 22 and showed up crying on my doorstep at 2 a.m., I let her stay for a week. When she was $2,000 short on rent one year, I wired it without a second thought. Birthdays, breakups, business ideas. I was always there. And now, I was a villain, a narcissist, a pathetic clown. Still, I tried not to let the hurt win. I focused on work, on friends who actually cared. I went to the gym. I cooked for myself. I even rewatched a few dumb comedy movies that used to make us laugh as kids, until I realized that now, even those felt sour. One night, a week after the blow-up, my mom showed up at my door. She looked exhausted. No makeup, hair tied back. She held a pie in her hands, store-bought, not even homemade. Can we talk? She asked. I didn't invite her in. We stood on the porch. She looked down, then back at me. She's hurting, you know. So am I said. She didn't mean it. You know how she gets. Emotional. Dramatic. She meant every word. I replied. She hesitated. You've always been the strong one. I know that's not fair, but you're her big brother. There it was again. I almost laughed. You're asking me to keep pretending she's not who she is, I said. I'm done, Mom. I won't fund her fantasy. I won't lie to protect her. And I won't be her scapegoat anymore. Mom's eyes welled up. So you're just going to let her fail? No, I said. She can succeed or fail on her own, like the rest of us. She left the pie on the porch and walked away. I stood there for a long time, watching her car disappear down the street. It hit me then. This wasn't just about money. This was about identity. For my whole life, I'd been the responsible one, the fixer, the backbone. And the price of that role had been my dignity. But now, I was free. And something told me, Melissa was about to face a kind of reality she'd never met before. It didn't take long for the next wave to hit. A few days after the pie on the porch moment, I got an email from a vendor, a high-end florist I'd never spoken to. She was confirming a final payment of $6,800. Attached was an invoice with my name, my company's name, and Melissa's wedding date. There was a note. Per our agreement with Mr. My last name, final installment is due by Friday. I stared at it for 10 minutes before I called. The woman on the other end was polite but firm. Yes, Melissa assured us you were handling the payment. She said you'd be covering all wedding costs personally. I asked for a copy of the contract. My name was printed at the bottom. Typed, not signed. No initials. No legal signature. I didn't authorize this, I told her. You've been misled. She sounded annoyed, like she'd already had this conversation before. You're the third vendor to say that this week. That stopped me cold. The third? I asked. Who else? She wouldn't say, but that was enough. I started digging, calling vendors. One by one. Some were confused. Others sounded furious. A few had already tried charging my business account, which, thankfully, had fraud protection in place thanks to my accountant. It became clear Melissa had created a house of cards, held together by my reputation and her fake promises. She'd used my name like a golden ticket, betting that I'd be too embarrassed to back out once the wheels were in motion. That's when I started putting the real picture together. She never planned to pay for anything. Not a single dollar. She didn't even ask Ryan to contribute. He told one of his groomsmen he was just showing up in a tux. She hadn't picked the vendors because they were the best. She picked the most expensive, knowing they'd be harder to say no to once contracts were signed. This wasn't a mistake. It was a con. I started wondering what else she might be hiding. On a hunch, I called an old friend, Kevin, who works in finance and used to date one of Melissa's friends. I told him everything and asked if he could look into any public records, credit filings, anything unusual. A day later, he called me back. Dude, he said, you're not going to believe this. He sent me screenshots of a new LLC Melissa had registered 3 months earlier, under a different name. The business? Elite Events Consulting. A wedding planning brand. Registered to a P.O. box. Linked to an Instagram page with 5 posts and 1,000 bot followers. She had used MY money, what I'd already given, to create the illusion of a successful planning business. The wedding? It wasn't just about her dream day. It was her portfolio. She'd been planning to use the entire thing as a launchpad for her new career. And the most twisted part? She listed herself as the coordinator for the wedding, which meant, if things went well, she'd walk away not just married, but with a new business pitch. Look what I created. And I was supposed to foot the bill for all of it. That was the final straw. I called my lawyer, handed him everything, and said, let's get ahead of this before she drags me into a lawsuit with someone I never even hired. We drafted letters to every known vendor, clarifying that any contract without my signed authorization was null and void. We warned of potential fraud investigations if charges were pursued. Then, just to be sure, I filed a police report. I didn't name her directly, but I documented every instance where she impersonated me for financial agreements. I didn't want to press charges, but I did want a record. Melissa was about to learn that there were consequences, and I wanted it to come from the real world, not just from me. That weekend, she called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, screaming, then sobbing, then screaming again. You don't understand what you've done. Everything is ruined. You always ruin everything for me. I saved the voicemail. Then I blocked her number. I knew what was coming next, but I also knew I was ready for it. It all came crashing down faster than I expected. The first real explosion came from the venue itself. They posted a public statement, probably to cover their backs, announcing that one of their clients had attempted to secure services using fraudulent information. They didn't name names, but anyone connected to Melissa's Instagram could do the math. Melissa's influencer persona cracked overnight. People flooded her posts with comments. Is this about the fake wedding payments? Wait, did you scam your own brother? Girl, what is going on? She turned off comments. Then she made her account private. Then she deleted it entirely. That's when I knew she was panicking. 2 days later, my parents showed up at my house. No call. No warning. They just rang the bell at 8:30 p.m. like it was a normal visit. I opened the door and said nothing. My dad's jaw was tight, arms crossed. My mom clutched her purse like it was a lifeline. "We need to talk," she said. I stepped aside and let them in, though every part of me wanted to slam the door. They sat on the couch while I leaned against the wall, waiting. "She's not okay," Mom started. "She's barely eating. She's staying in bed all day. She says she has nothing left." My dad added, "She's talking about canceling the wedding." I said nothing. Mom wiped her eyes. "This has gone too far. You've made your point. But this is cruel." That word again. Cruel. I let the silence hang before I finally spoke. "You think I did this to her? But she did it to herself. She lied. She forged. She built a fantasy on my name and expected me to pay for it without question. She just wanted to impress people," Mom said softly. "To build something. By burning me in the process." Dad spoke up, firm. "You humiliated her." I snapped. "No, she humiliated me. Over and over. For years. And you let her. You both let her." They fell silent. I took a breath, steadying myself. All I ever did was try to help. Even when she mocked me. Even when she used me. But I'm done. And if you can't see why, then maybe you never really saw me at all. My mom's face crumpled. My dad looked away. Finally, he said, "So what now? You just walk away from the family?" I shook my head. "No. I walk away from the lie that I owe her anything just because I kept the peace all these years." They left soon after. Quiet. Defeated. I didn't feel triumphant. Just tired. Empty. But strangely free. The next week, Melissa sent an email. The subject line was just, "I'm sorry." I didn't open it. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew what it would say. I knew it would be another half apology wrapped in guilt and emotional blackmail. Another plea to clean up the mess while she cried in the background. And I was done cleaning up after her. I heard through the grapevine that she and Ryan postponed the wedding indefinitely. No new date. No explanation. The vendors bailed. Her so-called event planning business folded before it even launched. A few people messaged me privately to say they were sorry for believing her, for sending angry messages, for not asking my side of the story first. I thanked them, and I moved on. There was no victory dance. No revenge fantasy fulfilled. Just silence. The kind that finally lets you breathe. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a clown juggling other people's expectations. I felt like a man who'd stepped out of a burning building. And though I didn't look back, I could still hear it burning behind me. It's been 6 months since the wedding that never happened. Melissa still hasn't spoken to me directly. I heard from a cousin that she and Ryan quietly eloped at a courthouse. No guests, no fanfare. Apparently, she posted a filtered selfie in a white jumpsuit with the caption, "Love always wins," then deleted it an hour later. She's trying to rebrand again. Different Instagram account, different vibe. Less influencer, more wellness coach. She's pushing affirmations now. The irony is exhausting. As for my parents, things are strained. We talk, but it's not the same. They don't bring up the wedding anymore. They act like it was some bad weather that blew through. Unfortunate, but nothing worth unpacking. But I remember the silence when I asked for support. The way they tried to guilt me into submission. The years they ignored the imbalance. Let her shine while I was told to dim myself for the sake of peace. Peace. That word never meant much in our house. It meant suppression. Sacrifice. Swallow it down. Be the bigger person. Don't cause waves. Well, I caused waves. And I'm not sorry. The fallout was lonely at first. There were quiet holidays. Fewer invitations. A weird tension whenever family members reached out, like they weren't sure if I was still part of the tribe. But I filled the silence with things that actually mattered. I started traveling again. Took a solo trip to Japan. Hiked trails with no cell service. Ate ramen at midnight in places where no one knew my name. I remembered who I was before all the noise. I made new friends. People who didn't know me as Melissa's brother or the family ATM. Just me. And more than anything, I learned that boundaries aren't walls. They're doors you get to control. And I finally shut the ones that had been left wide open for too long. A few weeks ago, I got a birthday card from Melissa. No note inside. Just one of those glittery, pre-written messages about forgiveness and family. It was unsigned. I put it in a drawer. Not out of sentiment, but as a reminder that some people won't change just because you finally did. She wanted an $80,000 dream wedding. She got a courthouse. I wanted peace. And after all the chaos, I finally bought it. Not with money. With a word she hated more than any insult I ever gave her. No.